but it looked human. It was strong, and it moves fast. Really, really fast.
Ethan.
Bloody Eyes! We are talking Bloody Eyes from Raphael Nani, who wrote and directed this. So, Bloody Eyes is a kind of horror thriller, and the story involves a squad of police detectives who are doing this kind of investigation going into this building. Now, they're not actually authorised to go in there, but they are desperate to get the bus, so they kind of break protocol and end up kind of going in this building. And when they're there, they're expected to find, a drug kind of warehouse, that sort of thing, and it kind of is, but it's sort of a laboratory where there's been sort of some type of experiments being done on humans, and there is a experiment loose in this facility that has blood on its mind and in its eyes, according to this title. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's talk about it. What do we think works in this movie's favour? Now, this movie, it mainly takes place in this kind of one location, this kind of building, which is doubling as a kind of a large laboratory with lots of kind of tunnels and sort of corridors and rooms and things like this. So the movie has this sort of claustrophobic feel, but it reminded me a little bit of like a first-person video game, shooter. It's not filmed in first person, but just going through all these kind of dingy corridors and stuff, and having kind of, mutant enemies there and stuff, it kind of reminded me of it, and discovering various sorts of horrors. So it has a sort of video game-esque feel to it, I would suggest. So, if you like that sort of thing, then you might want to check it out. I think the location is actually, I have a couple of problems with the location necessarily, but I think it cinematically, I gotta say, I think it looks pretty impressive. It looks claustrophobic. It looks very kind of run down. So aesthetically, at the very least, I think, it seems quite apt for a kind of a horror film and things like that. So that looks sort of pretty good. And I got to say as well, I quite like the kind of the set decoration. We see these labs, and it's got a variety of like beakers and paraphernalia of all this kind of like stuff that's been going on. And we do see some shots of these experiments, and it looks, they look pretty gnarly. And it's just because it's not like this kind of bright laboratory where it's all sort of clinical and everything. It's all dirty and grimy and things like this, and it looks very sort of unhygienic. So it's just, as well as being kind of experimented on, it just looks horrible. So it has this kind of real like horrible, oppressive kind of feel to it. And because obviously, ultimately our kind of creature is someone that's been experimented on, you sort of feel a little bit of kind of empathy to a degree, I would say. I think the cast did a reasonable job here. I'm not saying this is kind of Oscar-worthy acting or anything, but they did an alright job, I think, in the kind of the acting department here. I think they kind of did you can kind of buy that they're a young squad of cops and everything like that. Maybe they're a bit too young ultimately to be detectives, but they're kind of like, almost reminds me of 21 Jump Street. That's kind of like younger sort of group of people and stuff like that. But I thought they did an okay job in regard to acting and stuff like that. And as the film goes on, they're trapped. So we have this kind of escalating sort of tension and things. So it's not a long film, so it's not badly paced necessarily. So there's an amount to enjoy here. What doesn't work? Even though this movie has reasonable pacing, there's not a lot to it, to be honest. It is, once we get into this kind of facility, it's just people running around corridors at the end of the day. And I was kind of questioning, in like modern day America, how are they not able to get out? How are they not able to go through a window, pull a fire alarm, you know, things like this? Surely there's kind of phone reception somewhere. I mean, you know, this is not like it's some sort of government facility which is, you know, deep underground in everything. They thought this was like just a, you know, a drug operation and things like this. So it's not like it's some secret hideaway necessarily. It is sort of somewhat in plain sight. I mean, they do try and sort of hand wave it away about, oh yeah, you know, it's some sort of this big pharmaceutical company have got all these measures into place and all the rest of it. But I don't know, it was a little bit weak, to be honest with you. The other thing I would say as well, the whole setup here is we have this kind of, our main cop, if you like, he's this kind of maverick guy who, you know, who doesn't follow the rules and all the rest of it. And, you know, he kind of breaks procedure and stuff. And I think, well, if you're police and you want to get, obviously, you're following up the police procedure and stuff to get busts and stuff, you have to follow the procedure. You can't just be like a rogue agent, because anything you find would be inadmissible. So, you know, it struck me as a little weird. I mean, I think it's an excuse to sort of say, oh, we can't get back up and stuff like that. No one knows where we are. And I think that was probably the reason for it. But story-wise, it's kind of like, well, you know, would the police do this? I mean, I guess there is instances where, you know, police kind of break procedure and stuff. But again, just to kind of go in there with guns drawn and possibly engage with people and get evidence and stuff, that you might have a look around or something, I get. But I don't know, it just seemed a little weak to me. Just kind of like, just to get the plot to go in a certain sort of direction and things like this. So, you know, there's that. So we get in there. It's very dark inside this laboratory, and they try and have a few kind of light sources and stuff. But the cinematography is pretty dingy in there, and I get that's part of the aesthetic. But I never really feel like we kind of get a good look at our creature, because he's forever kind of just shrouded in darkness. Now, we get a few glimpses here and there, and, you know, it's just a guy in a rubber mask at the end of the day, and the way they kind of speak about it, it makes it, oh, he's as big as a bull, and he's kind of like massive and really fast. It's just some guy, you know, it's just like a guy in a mask running at normal human speed, not particularly bigger than any other human. It's a little bit kind of like, I think you're overselling this a little bit, aren't you? You know, he's like just some guy. I mean, so, you know, it's, when you hear these people talking, it doesn't really relate to what you're actually kind of seeing. And I got to say as well that the makeup, it kind of just looks like a somewhat of a static rubber mask, and maybe this is why they were sort of trying to kind of hide it, to try and keep it into those, because in reality it's not particularly strong. I mean, I get that, but it's a little frustrating at the kind of the same time. The kind of the deaths and stuff, not particularly exciting, well staged, you know, great kind of like kills or anything like that. They're all sort of pretty, you know, rubber looking crowbars and stuff like that, and not particularly kind of well put together at a technical level. And I have to say as well, the ending is extremely abrupt. It just sort of ends, and I'm like, oh, I was kind of expecting a little more than just kind of this abrupt ending. And the world building as well, I think, is a little weak. So it's kind of, I've got to be honest with you, a slightly below average movie. It's not a terrible film. I think there is some watchability factor here. I think the cast do an alright job. I kind of like the idea in a way, even though it's a little flawed. And aesthetically, I think there's some good stuff going on. But there's just a few too many flaws for me to kind of say it's like just an average film. It's probably slightly below average. And that's actually going to give it a 4 out of 10. What were your thoughts if you've seen it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
For the Legion, specifically the Geek Legion of Doom, of course.